How you doing? All right, what's up?
All right, so now, look, listen, it's a real honor to have you on Chaplin Talks. I can't tell you how much I've been waiting for this interview.
Wow.
So, actually, I think it was 2 days ago, I was in the car driving, and Good Times came on the radio, just by pure coincidence. And it made me realize how much of an iconic song that is. Can you tell me a little bit about the recording of it, how that song came about?
The night before I recorded Good Times, I was partying at Studio 54 with John Deacon, the bass player from the group Queen. And you know, it's funny, this type of thing would happen all the time. I would say to an artist that I just met, hey, let's go to the studio. Or let's go to studio, sorry. And I meant Studio 54. They thought I was talking about let's go to the recording studio. So we wound up hanging out at Studio 54 all night, partying as we did back in those days. Studio 54 was like my home base. They started literally weeks before Chic got our first hit. So we were running basically in sync. So after hours, Studio 54 would close their doors, but there'd be a certain group of people that they'd let stay inside. They just locked the doors and we partied. So I went right from Studio 54 to the recording studio.
Okay.
So I had this idea that I had worked on, just a simple, like, I don't know, maybe for like a half hour. I don't even know if it was that long. Maybe it just popped into my mind. And typically the way that Chic songs are made, whoever comes up with the original idea or the original motif that we're working on, the other person, meaning if Bernard comes up with it, then I copy his part exactly, and then I let that morph into my own part. I taught the band, wrote out a very simple chart, taught the band the simple Good Times, groove, motif, chord changes, and Bernard was late to the studio that day because he wasn't quite there yet. But meanwhile, the band is reading the chart, so we all had it down. We were just jamming. And Bernard runs into the studio and he says to Bob Clearmountain, who was our engineer, he said, wow, what's that? Bob said, I don't know, I think it's something Nile came up with last night. And so Bernard just ran and plugged in. And so typically he copied my lick. That's the first thing he would do. So I was just going, dan chicka dan chicka dan chicka 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 dan 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 dan. So he'd go boom, 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 boom. And I don't know, somehow I just screamed, walk, walk. Now, the reason why I did that was because we had done that many, many times before. Yeah. It wasn't like it was the first time I screamed walk. It was just the first time he happened to walk, and it was that mega bass line.
Okay.
So it was like boom, 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 boom. But then he went boom, boom, walk. Boom, 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 boom. And then when we got to the 4 chord, this is what made Good Times so unique, is he goes to the 4 chord, and instead of me overly defining it as a 4 chord, my voicings, I do voicings that are all what we would call extensions on the 4 chord, but I'm basically playing the 1 chord.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Right. So and then I finally resolve it to a 4 chord, but it's an A13. So I play E minor 7 to E minor 7 sus, dun 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 dun, and then I go back to E minor 11. But now there's every extension in the chord, and the third is near the top. The third and the five, the three and the five are at the top. So it's just like 1 7, like it's just crazy. But Bernard is on the 4, so you hear it as the 4 chord. So you hear boom, dun, 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 dun. He goes boop, ba doo, 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 ba doo, boop. And he goes boop, doo, ba doo. He's hanging on the 4, 4, 4, waiting for me to get to back him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that, it's just some clever thing that happened, that he happened to jump to it, and by him going there before the downbeat, anticipating the beat, it made it really cool. And somehow it just magically has a certain thing that is uniquely Good Times.
It's such a catchy song. I think, like I said, it's probably one of the most iconic songs of all time. How important is a bass line to your music? Because obviously Bernard was a machine on the bass.
Yeah, Bernard Edwards was a real force to be reckoned with. He was magic. I mean, some of the lesser known Chic songs that have insane bass lines, Happy Man, unbelievable. Bass players could barely play that song. Of course, the very first Chic song I ever wrote was called Everybody Dance, which has an absurd bass line. And so much so that I wound up being subordinate to his bass line, because I originally was playing a chucking part on Everybody Dance. But his bass line is so complicated that I just wound up playing dun, 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 and holding a football, as we call it, a whole note. Dun, 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 2, 2, 3, 4, dun, dun,
So
dun,
good.
1. You know, so because the bass line carries the entire song.
Oh, completely. So growing up, if you could, a young Nile, would you have ever thought that would you have thought that you would have gone on to sell 500 million records? When you first picked up the guitar?
Yeah, your number's off now by 200 million, but okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, this last tour started out in Wolverhampton, and I was reading some statistical chart, and they said, wow, Nile Rodgers has sold over 750 million albums at this point, right? And it was given the statistics for me and Madonna and other records that I had worked on, and we started in Wolverhampton. Now, the thing that was funny about this, my very first tour outside of America, I'm talking 1973, the first city we played was Wolverhampton. I had never even heard of Wolverhampton.
Okay, I didn't
know
that.
I said to the audience, this morning I read an article that said that I sold over 750 million records, 750 million albums. And now here I'm back in Wolverhampton. Am I making progress, or is this like some kind of weird stalemate? But it was funny that the first place I ever played is where we started the tour.
So interesting. 750 million
albums. Yeah.
That's insane.
It is.
One of the best of all time, I think. One of the most sold of all time.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the secret behind that Chic sound, do you think? Because I think when you guys came out, you're more or less the pioneers of that kind of 70s era disco, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, so the thing that was really happening when we started was our music was subordinate to the technology of the day. So what happened is that this was the introduction of the 12-inch record. So now you could have a single song that would be the length of an entire album. And it was like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me that we could cut a song for like 14, 15 minutes? And if you had a great groove record, people loved a long song. They loved breakdowns and they loved different sections. So our very first song, Everybody Dance, most people think that our first song was Dance, 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 Yowza, Yowza, Yowza. But in fact, that was our first song that got played on the radio. What really blew us up was Everybody Dance, because it was an underground dance record that was 15, 16 minutes long, and it had different sections, and people just loved it. They loved just hearing the groove and the music develop. So it was all about the breakdown. And if you notice, now that I've brought it up to you, every Chic record has a breakdown. And our biggest selling single of all time, which is also the biggest selling single on Atlantic Records of all time, really? Starts with the breakdown. Is "Aw, Freak Out." The only person playing is me and the drums. "Aw, Freak Out."
So good. Well, so the first time I ever saw you live was actually only maybe about 3 years ago at Hyde Park.
Oh yeah,
with Duran Duran.
Right.
And it was one of the best shows I've ever seen. One of the most energetic, one of the best shows I've ever seen. It was so much fun. And you grab everyone, even though it's a big outdoor venue, it's almost like we're in a nightclub. Everyone's dancing, having so much fun. And my question is, how do you keep songs so fresh live? Because I imagine you've done thousands and thousands of concerts. How do you keep the energy fun?
So the main reason is because we're still an old school band. We don't use any click tracks. We don't use any secret backing tracks. Anything that you hear is being generated live right there on the studio, on that stage. I've never played Le Freak the same way twice in my life. It changes every night. And when I say change, I just mean subtle changes. I play the song, the original recording of Le Freak and the original recording of anything I've ever done, we were all reading music while we were playing it. So we were playing to a written arrangement. After it became a song, after it became a record, in the process of doing that written arrangement, believe me, every instrumentalist on the record, it's what we call getting off. We have moments where we get off, but you don't know where it's going to come up, right? You just feel it. You're just a band, and we're just playing, and it's grooving, and then somebody just goes doom, a few grace notes here and a few grace notes there, and reharmonization, a passing chord that's different just one time on the record, and if I were to try and play Le Freak like the way the recording is, or God forbid, what if I tried to play I'm Coming Out like the way the recording? I'd actually have to sit there, write down the part, look at it and read the chart and do that, and I was like, no, I know how the song goes, so I play how the song goes, but it's not the actual real arrangement. But no one ever pays attention to that. They just know it's the song,
and it sounds amazing,
and they like it, and we love doing it. And every now and then, if you see you've been to our show, so you'll see those moments where I'll turn and I'll look back at our bass player because he's changed the lick, for a minute. I just go, whoa, that's cool. So we really do change it every night. No show is the same.
You've worked with two of my biggest heroes of almost all time, let's say in my top 5, one of which is David Bowie, obviously did Let's Dance, and the other one, though, in my opinion, the best guitarist of all time, Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Nice.
How was Stevie Ray Vaughan to work with?
The greatest. I mean, I gave the eulogy at his funeral. Stevie was like my brother. I adored him, and when he came to work with us to do the Let's Dance album, that's the first time I actually heard of him. So I wasn't at that show in Switzerland where David heard him. So when he came to the studio, he probably had some idea that we were a relatively tight clique, because Stevie was a smart guy. He was aware of Chic because his brother Jimmy actually wanted me to produce him, or actually produce his band. He was with the group, Jimmy Vaughan was
Fabulous Thunderbirds.
the Thunderbirds. He
Yeah.
wanted me to produce the Thunderbirds, and so Stevie Ray Vaughan was aware of me and my production because of Jimmy wanting me to produce the Thunderbirds. Somehow I never got around to it just because my schedule was so tight. So Stevie was familiar with my production background. So anybody with an ounce of good sense would know that I probably had a pretty tight little crew. So what Stevie did was brilliant. He gets to the recording studio and he has barbecue sent. Now this is back in the day. Remember, this is 1982. He has barbecue sent from Texas to the recording studio where we were, like hand delivered. I'm like, what was this, Pony Express? There was a guy on a horse coming in from Texas. God damn, y'all, like, I got some barbecue. And he instantly, like, charmed the band, and we became great friends. And the barbecue joint was called Sam's Barbecue. I'll never forget this because it came with a calendar. And they put this calendar up at the power station, our recording studio, for like the next few years. And it had the 4 women who worked at Sam's Barbecue and a picture of Sam. And they took my little baby picture, like the picture of me when I was first born, and they stuck my face on one of Sam's workers called Irma. And from that point on, I was Nile Irma for like the next 8 years. I was Nile Irma. People would walk in, be it the Vaughan brothers or the B-52s or whomever. It was like, hey, Nile Irma. So yeah, Stevie just came in and we instantly just fell in love with each other. He said that he thought the best guitar sound that anyone ever achieved on him was on the Let's Dance album. He couldn't believe it. He said that, I remember when he soloed on the song Let's Dance, and the first thing he does is just play one note and just go,
yeah.
And I'm like going, dude, one note. I said to Bowie, why don't we call Albert King? If that's all he's going to do, he's got Albert's sound, but he doesn't have Albert's chops. Whoa, I didn't even know that until next thing you know, we played China Girl, and he's killing it. Stevie was just, I got to tell you, man, he was a loving spirit. And when I met him, he was going through a great transition in his life. And I'm so happy that I knew him during that transitional period. He was just the kindest soul I had ever met.
The story goes, from what I understand, because David Bowie discovered him in Montreux,
right,
in Switzerland. And I think Stevie was there playing with his band.
Right, Double Trouble.
Double Trouble. And from what I understand, there's video of it. He was playing with his band, and for some reason, it didn't go too well with the crowd. And I don't think the crowd were responding that well to him performing live.
Right.
But somehow David Bowie was backstage, saw him perform, and then asked him to play for him, I think.
Right.
Especially at the Montreux Jazz Festival, you think Stevie Ray Vaughan would go down.
Go down great, right.
Yeah. But he came back in 85 or 86, and then he just burned the house down.
Yeah, of course. So I didn't know about him not doing well. All I know is that David said, hey, I have this guy who I'd like to try and bring in, to do the guitar solos. I said, oh, of course, let's check him out. So, like I said, he was just very smart, and he bonded with us right away with the barbecue from Sam's and the whole bit. So he now became part of my clique.
I see.
It was just amazing. He did all of his solos in just a day and a half.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, he loved the sound. Now, he always credits me with getting that sound. I'm like, no, dude, it was my engineer, Bob Clearmount. But I'll take it. If you want to give me the accolades, I got the best sound out of Stevie Ray Vaughan. Okay, I'll take. But that was just completely not true. The way we work, I don't typically touch the engineer's desk, and the engineer doesn't touch my guitar.
Is it true that David Bowie mostly liked to record things in one take? I feel like I've heard stories about him where he always used to say, like, if you can't get it in 1 or 2 takes, you need to go out and take a break and then come back. Was it like that with Let's Dance?
Maybe he might have said that, but that was absolutely my philosophy.
Okay.
there's only one take of Let's Dance. There's only one take of China
really?
Girl. There's only one take of every. Yeah, I mean, come on. That's my philosophy.
Yeah, yeah.
I never. If you look back at the Chic archives, and a lot of people have, they'll say, "Oh my God, where's the click track? Where's the other version?"
Yeah,
of it?
yeah.
There is only one We Are Family. There is only one
That's
Good
amazing.
Times. There is only. So that was my version. That's how I recorded. I never did a second take of a song until it was like the end of the reel, and then we have maybe a couple of minutes and we just play. You know, tape used to cost money, and
of course.
And black artists had smaller budgets, and this black artist really had small budgets.
Okay.
So that's just my philosophy. That was how we learned. All my guys could read music, so we could just get the songs done like that. The entire Bowie project was done start to finish, and when I say entirely done, I mean mixed, delivered everything in 17 days. It's
Wow.
the easiest record of my life.
Unheard of.
Yeah, 17 days. And we always laugh because I used to say that the record was done in 21 days. And you know, David laughed and says, no, 17. Those other days you were off getting drunk. Once the record was finished, I was like, okay, David, now you sell the record, do what you got. So he would have execs come in for the next 4 days, 5 days, and just listen to the album, and he would sell it to the company that bid on it. So he booked 3 weeks. He booked 21 days, but I did the record in 17.
Wow.
Never worked on it again.
Is it true? Because obviously you have a guitar, the Hitmaker. They call it the Hitmaker.
Yes.
Is it true that you transitioned, tried a Telecaster for a while, and then decided it wasn't for you?
Yeah, I did. I did a number of recordings with Telecasters, and I like Telecasters. I like Stratocasters, but the only Stratocaster I really use is the Hitmaker. I've recently started playing live with the new Hitmakers that Fender has made for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually sound super close to mine, but now I still, I used to be a guitar repairman, so now I'm still fixing these to make them perfect. So I'm like shaving down the neck a little more. I'm going to remove the finish completely and then redo the finish because they use like 15, 16 coats of lacquer. The actual Hitmaker just has one coat of lacquer.
I see, okay.
So, but it still sounds pretty good.
Yeah. And what is the secret to that Nile Rodgers sound?
The muting capabilities that I employ, the muting techniques that I employ with both my right and left hand. So it's this hand is usually always doing 16th notes. It's usually just doing all the time. It's just judiciously opening and closing the sounds on this hand, or sometimes even more dramatic, cutting down on the 16th note.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
So if you watch me play on anything like Good Times, I'm going.
Well, your rhythm section is, I guess, in a sense as well, right? Because you're keeping the rhythm with your right hand.
Yeah.
And stuff. Yeah.
So, but like you specifically, I mean, you can listen to the record, you can hear it go, and when I hate, it's pretty full out.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
then when it closes down. I mean, it goes so it's
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
So, in order to make it sound that clean, and make it sound that clean for, I don't know, 10 minutes or something, you have to have a lot of strength and also a lot of coordination. Rhythmically, these guys really work in sync. They're like totally working in tandem together. They're just, I don't know. There's no other way to explain it.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the guitarist as well, though.
Bernard.
There's
Bernard
only one. There's only one Nile Rodgers.
Well, Bernard taught me that technique, and
really?
Yeah, when he taught me, I went into the bathroom. I mean, this is the old days where we used to have to share rooms with the other person in the band. So the drummer was my roommate, and the drummer was a real super womanizer, real handsome dude. So every night he's got some girl in the bed, and I'm in the bathroom by myself, you know. And I did that for like weeks, and then one day I emerged as this rhythm guitar player who can, with my knowledge of jazz and harmony, can play melodies. Like the record that I have, I'm up for a Grammy for this year with Beyonce, Levi's Genius.
Yes.
That's a great example of that technique where I'm using what we call étouffé. And I have my hand, my right hand down on the bridge, and I'm just playing. So it's actually the melody. You could hear the.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. Very percussive in a way.
It's percussive, yeah. It's funny. I've even said that. I said, you know, Little Richard turned guitar into a percussion instrument.
Yes.
I was like going, that's how I think of myself. I think of my guitar playing as the right hand of the keyboard, and you know, the keyboard's a percussion instrument. Mm-hmm. So it's that's how I play.
What part of your musical legacy are you most proud of, and why?
All of it. I mean, the fact that I'm still here, the fact that this year I've had so much success between Coldplay, Le Seraphim, G-Dragon, oh my God, Purple Disco Machine, mm-hmm. Zach Abel, now Aoki, Steve Aoki.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we got a bunch of records out, and they all seem to be doing well.
You've still got it.
Oh, I always say that. Thank God I'm employable. So
yeah, how hard is it? Because you obviously have a very creative mind, and I assume that you know. If someone comes to you with a song, I assume you know what you want to do with the song. Like, are you quite firm on your creative process? Do you try and collaborate with people? Do you get people that don't necessarily agree with your process? Like,
the thing is that I wind up playing so much that I give them choices. So typically, let's just take, Steve Aoki. Mm-hmm. He sends me the beat, sends me the track, which is pretty much done, and I can always find some kind of hole that I can fill, and then once I find that space, I then start to reinterpret over and over and over again. So I play every song I play from start to finish.
Okay.
I play from the beginning to the end, and then I just leave it up to the producers, and I just always give them way more than they need.
Okay.
So I never try and say this is absolutely the way I would do it. However, if I'm doing a remote recording with someone, I do give them a rough mix and say this is the way I hear it. But of course,
I see what you mean.
You can do what you want. I said throw it all away if you don't. I don't care. I had my fun. Now you guys do what you want.
Is there anyone in particular that sticks out in your mind that you've worked with, or anyone that you would like to work with, or wished you had worked with? I guess
the person who I really am into right now, she and I have already written 2 songs together. Is Maggie Rogers?
Yes.
Yeah, she and I don't know, man. We just clicked. It was just, phew. and she said something that was really one of the greatest compliments ever in my life. She says, "Wow, Nile, I've never seen anyone do what you just did." And I was perplexed. I was like, "Well, Maggie, what was that?" She said, "You wrote 2 like really great songs in an hour." I said, "Well, Maggie, we basically spent an hour laughing. We did that in 15 minutes."
Wow. I guess some songs come naturally as well, because I've heard of people spending months and months on one song.
Daft Punk, they said they would working on what became Get Lucky for 8 years.
8 years?
Yeah.
I mean, it paid off, obviously. It's such a, once again, one of the biggest songs ever. Is there a first song or artist that really made you fall in love with music?
I can't really say that there was a first song or artist because I loved music as a child. I started studying music. It was classical music, but I started studying classical music when I was 4 or 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first classical music I played were some of the simple parts of, Prokofiev compositions, because thank God they were the simple parts, like playing like some of the parts for Peter and the Wolf or whatever, and I really was into the Russian composers, and that's what they were teaching in school. It's not like I had some superior knowledge and I could go out and find it. This is what was part of the standardized curriculum in America. But I loved it. I stuck with it, and then I switched from flute to clarinet, and that was the universe talking, because the written range of the clarinet is the lowest note on the clarinet is the E 3 ledger lines below the staff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing the B flat clarinet. Most people don't know that clarinet, the written range for no matter what the clarinet is the E 3 ledger lines below the staff. But I was playing the B flat clarinet, and that just happens to correspond to the written range of the guitar. So when I switched to the guitar, I had tons and tons of music that I already knew on the clarinet, and I just started playing it on guitar. So basically, I just looked at these as transcriptions, and this was the instrument that I was now playing it on, and thank God it had the same range.
Yeah. I'm just thinking now, I just realized how I'm talking maybe 2005, I was at the Montreux Jazz Festival, and I was meant to be going with a friend to the Ahmet Ertegun tribute evening.
Yeah.
My friend canceled on me, so I ended up going by myself. And weren't you
I was the band leader.
The band leader, right?
Yes.
Yeah, what a night that was.
Yeah, so that was, it was interesting because when Ahmed hired me to do that, I said, well, Ahmed, you got to look at your legacy holistically. And he was like, what do you mean now? What do you mean? What are you talking about? And I said, well, Ahmed, there was the Atlantic records that you built in the beginning, that R&B music that you love, Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin and Benny King and that music. But there came a seismic shift with the album Woodstock. I said, because after that, next thing you know, you were putting out records by Crosby, Stills and Nash and people like that, and Led Zeppelin and, Clapton. There was definitely 2 different Atlantic Records periods. So I hired George Duke because it would have been a massive amount of arranging and chart writing. And I was like, whoa, man, but I really wanted to pay tribute properly. So I asked George Duke if he would do Atlantic Records up until Woodstock, and then I'll take over from Woodstock up until that point where we were. And that was such a smart move because, the Woodstock period, I brought out Stevie Nicks and had Stevie and Kid Rock sing.
Yes.
And I remember, man, this was the funniest shit ever. So Kid Rock is a super mega talent. I mean, whatever his wacky politics are,
Yeah.
as an artist, the guy is ridiculous. So he comes to rehearsal, and I said, all right. I said, so Bob, here's what I want you to do, bro. I want you to do Woodstock with Stevie Nicks. He goes, I don't know fucking Woodstock. So I said, all right, well, it's a pretty simple song. I'll play it to you. So I started playing it and singing it to him. I went, so I came upon a child of God. He was walking along. He went, oh, I know that song. That's called Woodstock? I said, yeah, that's Woodstock. He said, oh, okay, cool. I was like, boy, dude, this brother is vacuous.
Yeah, he's a real character.
Yeah, but he's really amazing. He's really, really good. So he did it. We killed it. You were there. Obviously. We killed it. We had fun. Then we kept it going. We went over to like another little room and just kept playing.
I think I was there as well.
We just kept
He was
playing.
there. He played it at 4 o'clock in the morning or something.
Right. And what happened was, the funny part of that story was, he had actually gotten arrested.
Yes.
And I didn't know where he was. So George Duke had finished his half of the show, and now I'm getting ready to start my half of the show. And there's no Kid Rock. I'm like going, oh my God, where the hell is Bob? And somebody says to me, oh, he got arrested. Bob got arrested last night, and blah, blah, blah. The cops burst into his room, and I don't know, whatever, he was doing coke and whatever, and went to the strip bar and brought the girls back to I was like, oh, great. But then I count the song off, and he shows right up on stage.
Oh, really?
Right on time. I was like, wow. Now that's professional. That's
So
rock and roll.
even when you're arrested, he shows up on time.
He shows up. Yeah, I think Claude Knobs, the CEO of Montreux Jazz Festival, gets him out of jail, and he comes and he plays right on the downbeat, and we have a really successful show. Most people don't know that I was in Robert Plant's band, the Honey Drippers. So we did, so I had Robert Plant there.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say.
That's why, because I'm a Honey Dripper.
Oh, cool.
So I did that, started with Kid Rock, and then went all the way up through, I don't even know what we ended with, but I remember it was an incredibly great night, and that gave me the idea of, wow, I could do a festival within the Montreux Jazz Festival. So
completely.
Then I planned my own festival called Fold, which was Freak Out, Let's Dance.
Okay.
And we started at 6 o'clock in the evening and ended at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then took everybody out to breakfast. That was in Stravinsky. So it was pretty amazing.
There's also a very young Paolo Nutini on that concert as well. Huh? And that was one of his first shows. Mike tells the story of how you called him up saying, hey, it's Nile Rodgers. And he was just like, oh my God. Yeah. And you asked him to play in their band. Yeah. A very talented guy. Huh?
He's wonderful. Did Mike tell you about the time where he shows up at my house in Westport, Connecticut in a boat?
Yes, he said something to me about it.
They had rented a speedboat, and I guess they were in the Hamptons or something. And next thing I know, I get a phone call from them. I guess they must have had a cell phone, or back in the day, maybe it was a flip phone or a ship to shore. But they called me, and I gave them the coordinates. And somebody was a good yachtsman, because they navigated right to my house, and I see them pulling up to my dock. And I'm like going, whoa. And there's my boy Nutini, like pulling right up. And they came to my house. We had a blast. It was, those are the really fun days of rock and roll.
Yeah.
Where, you see your artist pulling up on a boat, and they're like out of nowhere. And I'm like going, dude, you didn't come all the way from Scotland, did you? In that thing? It was like what are you like yo ho?
That's so funny. It's a great story. And going back to that Kid Rock thing, I think the reason he got arrested is because he got locked out of his hotel room.
Ah, yeah.
And he started climbing the balconies.
And
he ended up, I can't remember who it was. It was someone like Aretha Franklin.
No.
It was someone
actually,
like that,
no. You know what you're doing is you're mixing these two stories together. So there was a guy who had gotten drunk, and he was also climbing the balcony, and he wound up in Chaka Khan's room.
Chaka Khan, that was it.
And Chaka Khan woke up. She was terrified, and she beat the piss out of this guy who was completely drunk, and Chaka was like lying in bed, and so that was the climbing story. So probably what happened is maybe those two events were happening simultaneously. Because that kid. So wait a minute, man. The way the story was told to me is that kid was in Kid Rock's room and climbed down from Kid Rock's room.
Okay.
And he went into Chaka's room. Kid Rock didn't go into Chaka's room. But it's something like that. One of those two stories.
Only in Montreux as well. This quiet little town in Switzerland, and all of this stuff is happening.
only when Nile's music director.
Exactly. And tell me, how in an ever-evolving music industry, how hard is it to kind of keep up with the technology when it comes to recording and stuff? Because like you said, back then you had to do you'd rather do everything in one take. Now, if you wanted to, you could go back and just change sounds, edit meticulously everything.
Right. That's why I play so many parts, because I know that what I hear is just the way I hear it. So I always give the artist what I hear. I love it when I'm in the room with the artist. Like I was in the room with Coldplay, working on Good Feelings. And that's cool. You're just jabbing and stuff. But at the end of the day, still, I know I played a lot more than the part that they put on the record.
I see what you mean.
I just love to play, and I don't necessarily force my ideas upon you. I just give you a whole bunch that you can sort through. Daft Punk is a great example. When I did the Random Access Memories album, they came to my apartment in New York and wanted to play some demos. I said, guys, man, I really don't like demos. I do everything in the studio. I don't want to hear it beforehand.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I want to be creative in the moment. I want to make you happy right there in the moment, and I will somehow find a part, and we'll find it together. So when I got to Electric Lady and they played what would become Get Lucky, I listened to it one time, wrote down the basic chart, and then said, okay, Thomas asked me, how did I make Chic records? Because I told him that we did Chic at Electric Lady, our very first single. And I said, he's standing in the exact same place Bernard Edwards was standing in when we did Dance, Dance, Dance. And he said, whoa, how did you do Chic records? I said, well, turn everybody else down and just let me play to the drums. So I had a chart of what would be called Get Lucky. And at that time, it wasn't called Get Lucky. It was no reason to call it Get Lucky. It was whatever, Daft Punk 85 or something. I just started playing my vibe of what the groove should be. And then they had said to me, matter of fact, they insisted that I bring my clear plexiglass guitar, because as young guys, that's what they grew up with. With Chic, we were on tour, and my plexiglass, my see-through guitar is the only guitar that sounds like the Hitmaker.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I sort of electronically made it sound like the Hitmaker. So they were like, oh man, you got to bring that. So I play the single note part on the plexiglass guitar, and then I go back to the Hitmaker. So there are three tracks on Get Lucky. The the plexiglass, or sometimes people call it lucite guitar, where it's going. That's a I like to get lucky. That's where that.
I see what you mean.
Probably when Pharrell heard that, that just was like, wow, because Pharrell wasn't part of those sessions until later. He did his stuff in Paris.
So, last question.
Shoot.
If you could sit down and give your younger self one piece of advice when you first started out in music, what would it be?
Do everything exactly the same way.
Really, yeah?
Yeah, because it was because I was so naive, because I was so honest, and because I also believed in people that were smarter than myself. I would listen to them. Now I realize that what they were saying was ridiculous, but somehow it worked. Totally ridiculous. If you saw my plan to get my first hit record, and you followed that plan, like I would just imagine people would. They may not shoot you. Well, in America, they probably shoot you. In England, they'd stab you. But if you followed that plan and asked somebody, excuse me, can you give me this amount of money? Because I'm going to go out and buy a 1920s flapper dress for a woman to go in, and some guy to get a megaphone and go, yowza, yowza, yowza. We're going to go to the radio station and play that song, and then she's going to dance around. Dance, 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 dance. Yowza, yowza, yowza.
Yeah.
And then it's going to work its way back to New York, and you're going to get a big hit record out of that. Like I might stab you. But no, it was completely ridiculous, and it totally worked because of the music. When people heard the music, so we went to this one radio station in Pittsburgh called Whammo, and we tried it over the weekend. And the telephones in those days, telephone, people would call the radio station and go, wow, what's the name of that song? What's that song? Who's doing that song? Well, wow, that's incredible. Yeah. So the phones lit up, and that's what they used to say in the old days. They said, man, we played this record over the weekend, and the phones lit up. People would call into the specific radio station and ask for the name of the song. Now, you couldn't fake that, because if you tried to do it, they would just... you'd be on hold or whatever. So you'd have to really be interested, or you'd have to have an army. Like, when hip hop became popular, they would have their crews try and call in. But this this was legit. It was real human beings responding to that song, and they were relentless. And that's what happened. We went, we put on this silly little show with this funny little disco feeling record that was composed because we were paying homage to this Jane Fonda film called They Shoot Horses, Don't They? And we knew that people wanted long records now. And the only time that America seemed to want length when it came to dancing was during the Great Depression, and they would have dance marathons. So to us, we thought, oh, long records, long song, dance marathon. That's what the 12-inch record gives us, the ability to make long songs. So that's what I'm saying. Everything is stupid, but it made complete sense when we put it together, and it was all about long songs and all about breakdowns, and that's what we did, and people responded to it. So if I changed that to something that sounded intelligent, I would not have gotten lucky. And that's what wound up happening. That's why I always say that when people ask me for advice on how to do stuff, I never give advice because I don't know. Yeah. I just did what I thought was right, and it happened to be right.
I think a lot like my grandfather, you pioneered the entertainment industry, especially music. So for you to come on this show really means a lot. Thank you so much.
Well, I'll tell you, man. I just watched a documentary on your grandfather.
Okay.
And wow, an amazing, amazing human being. And it's just incredible what the industry did to him. When I say the industry, meaning the America, like the institution of America did to at that time what the most famous actor in the world. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about what he did for the film industry as well, he built his own studios.
Yeah, I know.
There was no Hollywood before him, really.
I know, United Artists, and the whole concept of bringing, it's interesting. Yeah, I always say that people are beautiful, and governments, and I don't mean every single person in the government, but governments as institutions basically are not beautiful. People are beautiful, and not every person is beautiful. But you know what I'm saying? But like every country I go to, and the people know our music, I wind up getting along with them great. It makes no difference what country it is. The American government could say to me, "Oh no, that's the worst country in the world." And I go and I meet somebody, and like they're total fanatics. They love the music, because our music, though it may seem apolitical, there's always a non-fictional element to the story, and it usually has to do with the way that people are being treated or the way that I see the world.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't want to go on, because I could go on and on and on about it. But really, I have so much respect. So when I was told that I was doing this with you, I just kept thinking to myself, oh man, I got to watch that doc again. And get in there. But I didn't do that last night.
Okay. Well, Nile, really, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, man. Total pleasure.
Thank you.